welcome to our service this morning, and I'm going to give us the announcements this morning. First, I'd love to welcome Reverend Bran Lennox as our guest officiant this morning. I'm really looking forward to what you have to say. And I will go through, Todd, do you want to give the announcement for your events? Okay, so I will skip past the ones that I know Todd is going to go through. But just to let people know, you can look at the announcements in your order of service. The things that are coming up soonest, one Todd will talk about, one I will mention is the Sabbath walks. There will be I guess next week is the training for the Sabbath walk on the 22nd, just to sort of go through what the process will be like for these Sabbath walks. And then on the 29th, we'll actually have our first Sabbath walk. You can sign up for those out in the lobby. There's a sign-up sheet just so we have some idea how many people are coming. And then on the 29th, Stephen will be giving a recital in the sanctuary at 3 p.m. This will be, I'm not even going to try that. The Bach pieces, correct, Steve?
Bach, Mozart, Chopin.
Bach, Mozart, Chopin. Okay, there we go. And also, just to let people know that we're still looking for people to join the role-playing gaming group. You can join that at any time. People can drop in and never drop out. Once you drop in, you're in the group. So just to let you know that, and then Todd, you can do the last couple.
Good morning. I just wanted to talk about two things that are coming up, fixtures at the church. On the 29th is our jack-o'-lantern competition, and if you don't have that on your radar, I encourage you to do so. It is a fun event that both kids and non-kids carve pumpkins for, and they're on the wall out here, and they can be seen a quarter of a mile down the road, and it really causes a traffic issue in a really good way. People stop, they want to come look at it. And a week from today is the Old Town Photo Calendar Competition right here. And I have really good news because a few days ago we were just at about 20, and 20 photographers registered, which means it's an okay show. And then what happened over the past couple of days, it's a miracle. 10 or 12 more signed up, and we have a really good showing right now. We're going to have a great event next week, and I hope you'll be around to vote for your favorites. Thanks.
Good morning. I was concerned that I might be getting some feedback here. I am the Reverend Bran Lennox. I go by gender-neutral pronouns like they and them, and it is lovely to join you today as a guest in your pulpit. Today we will be contemplating the nature of community and what it means to be a people of faith during times of rebuilding. In that spirit, I invite you to take a quiet moment looking around at the people with whom you have gathered today, those with whom you share this sacred space. We have chosen to bring ourselves here to this sanctuary to gather as a community of faith. We join together in solidarity as a covenanted people who are drawn together by the promise of connection and the mysterious pull of the unanswerable. We draw on experiences of love and of wonder to lift our hearts and move us beyond the mundane. As seekers, wanderers, appreciators of nature, and creators of connection, our paths have converged today so that we might become present to the spirit that is worship. And so let us worship together. Let's rise together in body and or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn. It's number 126 in the great hymnal, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Please remain standing as we recite our covenant, which will be followed by the song of exaltation. The words to both can be found in your order of service.
In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all.
Truth and good be sung. first reading is In Gatherings, by Marta, Valentín. In gatherings, we are stirred like the leaves of the fall season, rustling around sacred trees, tossed hither and yon until we come to rest together, quietly, softly. We come to gather strength from each other. We come to give strength to each other. We come to ask for strength from the spirit of all that is and is not. When our hearts sing or when they frown, it is the way of compassion telling us to give. It is the way of peace telling us to share our gifts. For we are happiest and most powerful when love is made apparent in and through us. Spirit of the circle that is love, as we twirl in this dance that is life, we give thanks for reminding us each day of our task of ministering to each other. With a searching glance, a safe touch, a generous smile, a thoughtful word. Thank you for reminding us that we are always building our beloved comunidad. Thank you for reminding us that through our covenant with you, we covenant with each other and are made whole. In gratitude, we celebrate with open hearts and minds. We discover who we are, separate from each other and within one another. In this circle that holds all life, may we ever work toward widening its boundaries until there are none.
Our second reading is from Luke 14, a lesson about guests. When Jesus noticed how the guests were choosing places of honor, he told them a parable. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, don't sit down at the place of honor in case someone more important than you was invited by the host. Then the host, who invited both of you, would come to you and say, "Give this person your place." In disgrace, you would have to take a place of least honor. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the place of least honor. Then, when your host comes, he will tell you, "Friend, move up higher," and you will be honored in the presence of everyone who eats with you. Because everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the person who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he told the man who had invited him, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, stop inviting only your friends, brothers, relatives, or rich neighbors. Otherwise, they may invite you in return, and you would be repaid. Instead, when you give a banquet, make it your habit to invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. Then you will be blessed because they can't repay you, and you will be repaid when the righteous are resurrected.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer. God, who is always present when we choose to gather, we open our hearts to your grace. Our souls are weary at the state of the world, and yet we are blessed. In this sanctuary, during this soft morning hour, we are sheltered by walls and by covenant. We come here for many reasons: celebration, contemplation, the presence of community, worship, and here we encounter a feast of opportunities. We may find the chance to be challenged, facing the truths in our world or the truths in our hearts. We may find the chance to be comforted, savoring a quiet away from the day-to-day, or putting voice to our struggles and finding ourselves held. In truth, many of us are in need of some combination of both, challenge and comfort, from moment to moment. Today, the grace for which I pray is that of balance. It takes a divine sort of wisdom to know how to care for our own souls in a way which enables us to care for our families, our communities, our fellow humans, and our earth, each in turn. If we spend every hour of every day focused on the overwhelming hurts of the world, trying to hold or solve the ever-growing list of urgent crises and injustices which harm our loved ones and neighbors. If we never look away long enough to recharge, we will inevitably burn out, risking harm to ourselves and compromising our power to truly make a difference. If we only ever seek to make ourselves comfortable at the expense of striving for a better world, we will miss out on a true sense of belonging and connection. We can't fulfill our responsibility to the interconnected web of life without putting our own comfort second at times. When challenges in our own lives and dire news in the wider world make it harder than ever to find an empowering balance, may we find that balance of care. May we bless ourselves with the gift of prioritization, deciding what matters most and when to let go of those things which drain us without reward. May we bless ourselves with the gift of gratitude, reminders of those reasons why all the struggle is worth it. May we bless ourselves with the gift of forgiveness, shedding the heaviness of shame for past mistakes, remembering that no one's strength is infinite, and allowing ourselves spaces of healing and compassion. May we never feel ashamed to ask for help, trusting in our personal source of faith to carry us forward, and knowing that sharing our moments of vulnerability serves the health of our human communities. This week, every mindful breath will nourish us. Breathe now and feel the clarity and strength that it can bring. When reading the news brings panic and overwhelm, let us breathe. When pains and challenges of the body threaten our dignity, let us breathe. When grief sinks a leaden weight on the heart, let us breathe. When joy, excitement, and relief burn brightly in the soul, let us breathe. When we gather once again to join our minds and hearts here in community, let us breathe. In gratitude to all aspects of the divine, let it be so, and amen. Let's join our voices in prayer as we speak the Lord's Prayer in unison. Today we are using a translation which honors our understanding of the importance of gender equality and power hierarchy. You can find the words in your order of service. Parent God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now it is time for the offering, a free gift to a free church. Do we have a reader for our responsive reading?
We don't have readers.
Then I will lead it.
Somebody.
All right, our responsive reading this morning is number 444, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, should double check before I walked in. And that's in the silver hymnal as This House. I'll read the regular text and you will read the text in italics. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature.
It is a house of friendships, a haven of joy, and an open room for the encouragement of our soul.
It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person.
It offers a platform for the free voice, for the erring, both in times of security and danger, full and undivided conflict within.
It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers.
It is a house of art, adorning celebrations with melodies and embers.
It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress.
This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor.
And let's all rise and join in singing once again. This is hymn number 86 in the Gray Hymnal, Blessed Spirit of My Life. Practice of looking for answers in books. Now, not in a research sense, more in a divination type of way. And the process is pretty simple. I look at a bookshelf, and I soften my focus, and then I take down the book that stands out to me. I open the book, and I flip through the pages, feeling them fall past the tips of my fingers until something in me says stop. And then I read the first paragraph that jumps out at me. I've done this for many years, though I don't talk about it often. And it's helped me make a lot of important mental and emotional connections at key times in my life. It's not as though the books tell me what to do or anything like that, but the part of me that believes in a higher power which has direct intervention in my life likes to think that it's God that's nudging me in the right direction. So when I was asked by a mentor to do some close analysis of a passage from the Bible, I figured that I would let the Spirit pick the passage for me. And when I opened the book, it landed on chapter 5 of the book of the prophet Nehemiah. You know, Nehemiah. We all know Nehemiah, right? Well, not one of the better known Bible stories. Nehemiah's journey starts in the court of King Artaxerxes I of Persia around the year 445 BCE. When he learns of the state of shambles, which his people's city Jerusalem has been reduced to, Nehemiah is heartbroken. He obtains special permission from the king to travel to Jerusalem and try to rebuild it, both the literal buildings and the way of life in the city. Nehemiah faces a great number of logistical hurdles with courage and with grace, motivating every Israelite in the city, regardless of status, to get involved in the rebuilding process. At the end of chapter 4, he has successfully rebuffed mockery and threats from the occupying non-Jews who want Jerusalem to remain a ruin, and the repairs are beginning to take shape. Which brings us to chapter 5, the passage that was turned up by my little divination exercise. Now I have to read you Nehemiah's words from this section because they give me goosebumps with their relevance. You see, the common people come to him complaining that their wealthier compatriots are taxing them to death. Some have nothing for themselves and their families to eat. Others can buy grain, but only by going deep into debt and mortgaging their fields and their homes. And the biggest transgression of all, the Judeans are selling the sons and daughters of their own people into slavery to pay for those debts. Nehemiah says, "When I heard their outcry and the reasons for it, I became very angry. I thought the matter over and then took issue with the nobles and rulers. I charged them, 'You are lending against pledges, everyone to his brother,' and I summoned a great assembly to deal with them. I said to them, 'We, to the limit of our ability, have redeemed our brothers, the Judeans, who sold themselves to our enemies. Now you are selling your own family. We will have to buy them back.' They stayed silent. They couldn't think of anything to say. I also said, 'Moreover, my brothers and my servants, I too have loaned them money and grain. Please, let's stop making it so burdensome to go into debt. Please, today, give them back their fields, vineyards, olive groves, and homes. Also the 100 pieces of silver and the grain, wine, and olive oil that you demand from them as interest.' And just like that, the wealthy citizens commit to returning the resources of the common folk and to work to return those who had been sold into slavery. Nehemiah binds them to their promise with a symbolic gesture. He says, 'Shaking out the fold in my garment, I said, may God thus shake every man from his house and from his work who fails to live up to this promise. May he be shaken out like this and made empty.' The whole assembly said, 'Amen,' and praised Adonai, and the people did as they had promised." In today's terms, we might say that Nehemiah turned his pockets inside out and then told the assembled that God would be well within God's rights to turn the people out of God's pockets and discard them if they didn't keep their promise. At the close of the chapter, we learn that from that day forward, despite the demands and privileges of his leadership position, Nehemiah chooses to eat modestly and forego his wages out of fairness to the commoners who were so heavily burdened. All right, so that is some serious role model behavior. But why did I say that this was relevant? Well, does anybody else feel a little bit like our way of life, whatever it might be, has been reduced to rubble over the past several years? While world events and the situation in our country have hit a number of boiling points lately and just keep hitting them, many of us are feeling impacted on every scale, individual right up to theological. The pandemic, recent political and economic events, the effects of climate change, and more have irreversibly changed our world as well as our faiths. As a Unitarian Universalist, I've been acutely aware that my tradition was already going through a stage of working to determine who we want to be together, and recent events have only increased the sense of urgency in these questions. A huge number of us are in pain or feeling lost, and whether we are longing desperately to go back to the past or yearning for a very different future, it's clear that things won't continue as they are right now. Like Nehemiah returning to Jerusalem, it's time to rebuild the way of life in our communities. And if this is going to work, everyone needs to pitch in. Nehemiah wants to rebuild Jerusalem because he loves his people, and that love drives him to lead from a place of justice. In the words of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, I believe that to love God is to love our fellow humans. To honor God is to honor our fellow humans. We may not ask God to listen to us if we are unwilling to listen to others. We may not ask God to forgive us if we are unwilling to forgive others. To know God is to seek to imitate him, which means to exercise kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. Nehemiah understands that to seek right relationship with God, he has to treat the people he leads with the respect of equals. To rebuild our communities with love today, we have many lessons to learn from Nehemiah. It's easy to miss the cause and effect relationship between Jerusalem's efforts to rebuild and the people raising the need for anti-exploitation policies. After some close study of different interpretations of the book, it becomes clear that the reason the common people brought their complaint to Nehemiah at the time they did is because the rebuilding efforts took their already difficult situation and made it even harder. The cost of repairing the city was coming out of their already empty pockets, while those who held their debts kept on bringing in interest. When rebuilding is supposed to be good for the whole community, sometimes we don't realize that the greatest burden falls on those who are already struggling. Who is being metaphorically taxed to death while we're all working to build up our new normal? Is it the disabled, immunocompromised, aging, and chronically ill people who are being ignored as we adjust to endemic COVID? Is it the people of color who are expected to educate their neighbors in the midst of the re-traumatizing process of protesting their own marginalization? Is it the parent expected to keep a demanding, underpaid job while simultaneously keeping their young children safe, educated, and enriched? It's so easy to forget that when we must all pitch in equally, the same amount of demand doesn't impact everyone equally. So again, we do well to follow Nehemiah's example. First, we listen to the people, and then we find practical ways to alleviate the burdens of the struggling. We educate the unself-aware beneficiaries of the system about their actions, and we set an example by acknowledging where we've also taken advantage of injustice. Sometimes, no matter how hard we've worked to deserve them, we forego our comforts and luxuries so that others may survive. When making changes like this, communities tend to talk ourselves in circles about how we can't fix wealth disparity because the logistics are impossibly complicated and it just doesn't work that way. But when it boils down to it, in this story, Nehemiah said, "This is wrong, make it stop," and the wealthy said, "Okay," and things got better. Jerusalem certainly faced further hardships, but people weren't starving while others feasted or being sold to settle debts anymore. The other thing that really gives me goosebumps is when Nehemiah says, "Please let's stop making it so burdensome to go into debt." He knew that ignoring the struggle of others in order to accrue more wealth was wrong, and he knew it 2,500 years ago. But today, nearly 150,000 Americans are incarcerated in for-profit prisons. We have nearly an entire generation of adults struggling under massive debt from student loans. We have roughly 28 houses standing as empty investment properties for every homeless person in the country. 28 houses per homeless person. Part of a pattern of property hoarding, which has led to a housing and rent cost surge, which keeps owning a home an impossibility for millions of people. We have insurance schemes which inflate the cost of urgent medical care to the point that the success of a cancer patient's online fundraising campaign determines who lives and dies. What would Nehemiah say? To paraphrase, you are letting your own family die on the streets, and this won't fly. The prioritization of the economy over life and health is an outrage. To rebuild our community, we need to look at ourselves with a searching eye. We need to uncover all the places where this insidious system of selfish priorities has taken root in us, and we need to keep our response simple and on message. This won't fly. Not here, where we affirm each person's inherent worth. Not here, where all people are beloved. Not anywhere, but especially not here. In the United States, we live in a country where all of these outrageously selfish decisions surround and impact us daily. And while as a people who believe in justice and human equity, we may not be participating in any of the big crimes against justice which Americans perpetuate, this doesn't mean that our work is done. The culture of harmful individualism which surrounds us will naturally find ways to seep in and express itself in our community and in ourselves. Our work is to seek out these expressions and eradicate them in ourselves and in our congregations and in our denominations. It is just as urgent to working to dismantle those injustices on a world scale. As people who follow a faith of conscience, it is our mission to transform ourselves and our world. We journey through this world with a host of our own histories, relationships, and identities, and we observe this exploitation and injustice in the wider society through the lens of our own location. We can't lose touch with our self-awareness and hope to make a lasting difference. We cannot rebuild meaningful communities without hearing the call to treat humanity with honor, equity, and forgiveness. We need Nehemiah's courage to work tirelessly, get everyone involved in the process, and address the injustices that we encounter along the way. And then, like the Judeans who so long ago chose the way of reconciliation and forgave the debts of their neighbors, we may feel taken over by the joy of coming back into right relationship, and we will feel ourselves celebrating together. If, however, we miss the opportunity to steer in a new direction, which has been uncovered by all the recent big shifts in our landscape, we may find ourselves, our children and descendants, perpetuating the same painful mistakes for yet another 2,500 years. Unless we choose the path of honor, equity, and forgiveness, putting right relationship before individualism, foregoing comfort in favor of uplifting those burdened by history and society, we stand to lose so much that is necessary and that is good. We could lose our neighbors, we could lose the power of our community, and we could even lose the integrity of our faith. So instead, let us reorient our beliefs and actions to discover what is to be gained when we open our minds and hearts to faith in the community where selfish gain is not an option, a community we are building as people together, a community that is built on common good. Let's rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn. It's number 131, also in the silver hymnal, Love Will Guide Us. Please remain standing to receive the benediction. These are the words of Coretta Scott King. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. Go in peace and return in love. You may be seated.